Ah, yes. The release of the Fuji X100VI. Maybe, probably, like many of you, I find myself powerless. I find myself needing this camera. But I think I survived the urge. And I want to share with you one key thing that helped me walk myself off the cliff. And I know this works because I've had to exercise it many times. Many Sony cameras before it, many Olympus cameras before it, many Fuji cameras before it. Every time a new camera comes out, there's a piece of me that wants to leap. And you start reading the spec list, you start watching the YouTube videos, and you start telling yourself, yes, those extra stops of dynamic range would really be a game changer for me. The extra stops of image stabilization, the extra this, the new film simulation that, the new resolution. This exercise that I'm going to share with you really helped me put it in perspective. And it does it in a fair way. Find a project. I know, it sounds overly simple, but finding a project with your existing camera, your existing equipment, will allow you to make a better or more informed decision on if you should purchase or not. It removes the emotion from it. And I think the emotion is greatly tied to your wallet here, right? Because it is for me. So here's a bit about what's been going on with me lately. My wife and I have had a baby girl. As you can imagine, it has been a life-changing event. There's so many different pieces of this new journey that I've been documenting as a photographer and as a creative. One of these moments was my wife sent me a pair of sneakers and just like, babe, these are dope. Well, that's interesting. If any of you've been around, or you yourself has been a woman that has had a child, you know, there's so much about the woman and the body and the mind that changes, and it continues to change. And it's a lot of mourning and letting go of who you used to be and who you are now, and figuring out your role as a mother and as a person, and all these complex things that intertwine. Her sending me a pair of sneakers that she likes, she thinks is dope, really is a signal. And it's a signal to not more so like, here's this material thing, but more so here's her grasping for a piece of herself that existed before. Meaning, it's okay for her to like things now. It's okay for her to see what's out there. And it's okay for her to want to feel better in her physical and mental self. And I thought, wow, this is the first, this was like within 2 months of our baby being born. So it was still very fresh. I'm like, wow, here's, let me document this. Of course, it wasn't for me to go out and buy the sneakers. That's for her, right? But I want to document this in such a way that when she sees these sneakers, immediately she can draw that connection to where she was in that journey. So I set out to do exactly that. And I wanted to do it in a few different ways. I wanted to do it because this is where I was in my creative journey at the time. I wanted to do it in a way that would represent my product photography, because I've been working pretty hard at how to give inanimate objects a soul, how to take an inanimate object and document it in such a way that when a person sees it and it connects with them, it really evokes a response, an energy, an emotion. So I wanted to do that, and I wanted to document it. I wanted to take that further in a way where I do so in our home, right? And because we've been working so hard in the last 4 years, ever since COVID really, to purchase a home, and we'll purchase a house and then turn that house into a home, and then take that home and fill it with joy and laughter, and then take that to the next evolution and having a child and bringing a child into that energy. So I wanted to slot this new beginning for her with these sneakers of yo, I'm starting to feel like myself, and I think these shits are dope, and I'm gonna cop these. And I wanted to photograph that in different areas of the house, and I didn't know what it would look like, and I welcomed the challenge. What was my tool, you should ask? My tool was my trusty X-T2. I quite love my Fuji X-T2, and here's where the proof is in the pudding, and I want to get this across to you guys. I've had this thought many times. The Fuji X-T3 came out. The Fuji X-T4 came out. The Fuji X-T5 came out. And then somewhere in there was the Fuji X100VI, and then the X100VI, right? And then somewhere in there was a bunch of other Sony things, and then somewhere in there was a bunch of other Olympus cameras, and then the Ricoh GR. And there's so much opportunity for me to say, damn, if I just had this one camera, I could do this super dope. So I've had a lot of time to refine this process of, when faced with the gear acquisition syndrome, which we all know is gas, you can essentially give yourself a creative project, not a task. It has to be a project, because within that project are many tasks that you can use to really execute and flex the equipment in different ways that answers a fair bit of questions to you. And when I say doing this allows you to answer the question in a fair way to yourself, right? It's going to reveal to you if you truly need the equipment or the improvements of the tech. And if you do, it's totally fine, right? Like, if you were to set out on this project of documenting these sneakers, and you found that, damn, my old ass X-T2 doesn't have enough dynamic range. It doesn't have enough, or I'll be honest, it doesn't have any image stabilization. So I feel like my images aren't as sharp as I would like them to be, or I can't get the proper exposure that I would like because I can't get the sensor isn't stabilized and gives me that extra 1 to 2 more stops that I need to capture that image. Then I can say to myself with certainty, yeah, bro, it's time to upgrade, right? And this is the entire goal of the project. And then at the end of it, really, yeah, you set out to do a project to calm your dumb ass down and not spend all the money in your pocket. But also at the end of it, you do have something that you can say, man, I pushed myself. I allowed myself to flex my creativity. And then you sorta, or you should realize, and I'll say this very poignantly, that this is why I still have the X-T2. Because every time I go through this exercise, I remind myself that it's not about the equipment. It's not about the camera. It's about my creative vision. It's about my ability to creatively put together an idea and execute. And it's about my knowledge of the exposure triangle. And it's about my knowledge of how lighting adds to this. And it's all these things. It's a culmination of me, not the camera. And this is a very long-winded way to say I dodged that bullet. I did not acquire a Fuji X100VI. I'm still rocking out with the X1 with my Fuji X-T2, but again, I'm being fair to myself, because here's a piece I didn't share until I gave you that piece of context. I went on Amazon and I got me the Artisan. What is it? Is this the Artisan 27 f2.8? It's a relatively cheap piece of glass. And that's what it's a prime, right? So I had long been using the default 18 to whatever kit lens that Fuji has, which is an amazing kit lens, by the way. I decided to get a prime, and I'll use that prime to help me document it. So well, let's say I satisfied some of my gear acquisition syndrome. I got a new lens and it was only like $250. I executed the project and I didn't have to spend whatever amount, $1,800 or whatever crazy market prices exist now for that Fuji X100VI. And I'm totally happy. I survived. And I want to share that with you guys because I think every time, or I believe every time I have to do this exercise and I come out on the other side, it pulls me farther and farther away from the ideology that a new camera does something for me or does something. I know it does something to me, right? It makes me poorer. It drives my endorphins through the roof. And then I pretty much just sit back and be like, oh yeah, I got that. Now what, right? But it doesn't do anything for me. And by creating a project and going through this experience, it draws me farther and farther away from that every time, and I'm happy to be here. And I will share that sometimes I lose to this experience, right? Like I had to upgrade from my Sony a7 II to a Sony a7 IV. And that was on the professional side of things because my Sony a7 II couldn't focus in low light for the life of it. And all these other things. So I was able to prove to myself that yes, moving from the Sony a7 II to the Sony a7 IV has very real benefits for my outcome. It gives me much more confidence when I'm working an event and I don't need to worry about the camera focusing on the background and not on the person directly in front of it, right? And it gave me the, which is something rare you'll hear me say, but the added megapixel gave me more room to edit and post for my event photography and my professional stuff. So again, I don't want to say that this approach is all about dragging you away from spending money because gear doesn't matter. It's more about proving to yourself that the gear is justified. My name is Ramon. Welcome to the channel. If this is your first time here, feel free to like and subscribe. I always like to say, give me 3 videos so you can learn and understand my perspective and my conversation style, and leave a comment if you will. And I want to hear this video. I like to create videos that are very thoughtful, that are very long lasting. And I want to share with you guys my journey and my perspective, and I want you to execute. And a year from now, 4 months from now, 6 months from now, I want you to come back and leave a comment and be like, yo, I actually tried that and this shit worked. Or you're off your rocker, it didn't work. I now own a Fuji X100VI thanks to your dumbass. Thank you for watching the video. I'm out of here. Peace.